Hello, friends, colleagues, and anyone else listening. Welcome back to another episode of Readings in Impact Investing. My name is Daniel Rosehill, and this is a brand new podcast and YouTube channel which I set up to take important and useful material in the field of impact investing and make it available to a wider audience through simply reproducing it in audio format. I am simply the guy speaking into a microphone to make it slightly easier to keep up to date with key topics in this fascinating field through audio. Just a couple of housekeeping notes as we are still in our first week, and I say we to mean basically me. It is readingsiниmpact.org is the website. That will redirect to the Spreaker page, which is where it's being hosted. And you can also subscribe to this podcast directly through Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, and more as it continues to distribute through the magic of RSS. And finally, and YouTube. Couldn't forget YouTube. It's up on YouTube as well if you like to get your podcast there and just put them on playback, background play. And finally, my email address. It's public@danielrosehill.com. If you have issued a report, your colleagues issued a report, or you know of a good report and you think, hey, that would be great to listen to, then drop me an email, public@danielrosehill.com. Today we're going to do a quick one from UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme. They have an explainer up on their website from November 3rd, 2022, and it's called What is a Just Transition and Why is it Important? The reason that I'm doing this is I'm trying to cover the kind of foundational topics first. We talked yesterday about blended finance, catalytic capital, and there's a lot of very dense material, a lot of readings coming up about that. So to kind of have simpler materials as well, I thought I'm including just web pages, basically, as well as actual reports. So I'm reading this from the UNDP website, straight off. What is just transition and why is it important? Since the Industrial Revolution, fossil fuels have powered extraordinary growth and development, albeit with huge cost to our climate. As a direct result, we are today in a climate emergency. To avert catastrophe, we must now radically switch to a sustainable net zero future. This transition needs to happen fast, but it also has to happen in a fair and inclusive way. If done right, the transition offers immense opportunities. A systems change in which all communities, workers and countries are lifted up. Promisingly, momentum around just transition is gathering pace. We are seeing it emerge in the global dialogue around decarbonisation and net zero. More countries are referencing it in their short and long-term climate plans. Partners are coming together and coalitions are forming. So what's it all about? What is just transition? The concept of just transition has been around since the 1980s when it was used in a movement by US trade unions to protect workers affected by new water and air pollution regulations. In recent years, the concept has gained traction with reference to meeting climate goals by ensuring the whole of society, all communities, all workers and all social groups are brought along in the pivot to a net zero future. The International Labour Organization, or ILO, defines it as follows: greening the economy in a way that is as fair and inclusive as possible to everyone concerned, creating decent work opportunities and leaving nobody behind. The first word there was greening, as in making green. Greening the economy in a way that is as fair and inclusive as possible to everybody concerned, creating decent work opportunities and leaving nobody behind. While this provides a sound basis, perception does vary between countries and regions. What is important, though, is that each country fosters ongoing dialogue to develop a common vision for what a just transition means for their impacted workers, communities and businesses. Why are we hearing more about just transition now? With the adverse impacts of climate change worsening each year and the window for action rapidly closing, countries are strengthening efforts to decarbonise, green their economies and build resilience. However, achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement, which is to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius or less, requires unprecedented change in how we do things. Yet, as history has shown, abrupt change could incur a hefty price on workers and society. As these changes take place, momentum is growing around the concept of just transition. The importance of such a transformation is increasingly recognised by governments worldwide, as they cite just transition principles in their short and long-term climate plans, known as Nationally Determined Contributions or NDCs and Long-Term Strategies or LTS respectively. According to the latest report by UNDP, just transition principles are now reflected in 38% of NDCs and 56% of LTSs, as well as a growing number of high-profile global initiatives. Now, just to restate that this blog was authored in November 2022, so it's possible that those numbers have changed a little in the year approximately since then and now. While there's certainly more to be done, there are promising signs. What benefit does a just transition offer for tackling climate change? There are many ways in which a just transition can help as countries address the impacts of climate change and green their economies. First, by bringing the public along. If governments can demonstrate the socio-economic benefits afforded by a green transition, including economic benefits and new green jobs, then they can build a broad base of public support for higher climate ambition, as citizens will be more likely to get behind the associated policies and investments. Second, by supporting a green jobs revolution in which the alternative jobs created have guaranteed living wages, proper workplace safety protections and health benefits. These quality jobs will lift people, their families and their communities up, but they will also help attract the workers needed for the economic transformation. Third, by laying the social groundwork for a resilient net zero economy. With transparent planning and the active participation of a broad range of stakeholders, governments can minimise the fear, opposition and inter-community and generational conflict that may upend the move away from fossil fuels of old and other harmful activities that are warming our planet, such as deforestation and wasteful production practices. Fourth, by driving local solutions. By applying a just transition lens to climate action and undergoing the consultative processes associated with achieving just transition, countries can better understand the impacts, both positive and negative, of bold climate action and then identify the best solutions for their context. Thereby, they can unlock the greatest benefits. Fifthly, by reinforcing the urgency for concerted efforts to combat climate change. Transitions are often disruptive, and deliberate effort is needed to make them smooth. A just transition strategy embedded within short and long-term climate plans like NDCs and LTSs will help leaders stay focused on the urgent task at hand, on rapid decarbonisation, while also striving for fair and inclusive outcomes. Importantly, however, a just transition doesn't just help advance climate action, it also helps advance progress against all these Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs, notably those related to affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, reduced inequalities and responsible production and consumption. Who's responsible for and involved in making a just transition happen? Governments at all levels, national, regional and local, businesses and workers' organisations are all agents of change in the just transition. As well as conveners of social dialogue and consultation, governments have their primary responsibility to put in place the policy and regulatory frameworks needed to accelerate climate action underpinned by a just transition. They are also investors, owners of state enterprises and infrastructure, and employers of public sector workers. Meanwhile, businesses play an important role in identifying risks and tapping into opportunities, including training and developing new skills for workers. They are also keen to ensuring labour rights and human rights are respected as businesses enter green sectors. Workers' organisations, including trade unions and local and regional advocacy groups, are of course also pivotal to achieving a just transition, ensuring the needs of workers are represented as fully as possible. What are the obstacles to achieving just transition and how can we overcome them? Governments face a number of obstacles in achieving a green and just transition. Among them are a lack of clarity and consensus on what it is, a lack of data on the benefits of a green transition and the impacts of different policies on different segments of society, a lack of national capacity to develop the required policies but also fill the skills gaps, and finally, inadequate investment. UNDP is helping governments address these challenges as part of their short and long-term climate plans through 4 key areas of support: conducting qualitative and quantitative assessments, support for enhanced social dialogue, institutional policy and capacity building, and accessing and attracting needed finance. Which countries are leading the way? Under the Climate Promise Initiative, UNDP is supporting 34 countries and territories around the world to strengthen just transition principles, processes, and practices using UNDP's framework for incorporating just transition into NDCs and LTS. Countries like Serbia, Costa Rica and Zimbabwe are building a solid evidence base for just transition by conducting qualitative and quantitative assessments, including economic modelling, looking at the socioeconomic impacts of a green transition. This information is also helping identify target measures for vulnerable populations, such as women and informal workers. Meanwhile, South Africa and Antigua and Barbuda seek to demonstrate the benefits of a whole-of-society approach in which a wide variety of stakeholders are involved in defining a common vision for and pathway towards just transition. In India, capacity-building measures to bolster the national skills capacity, particularly for women and youth, are supporting the green jobs revolution. So that brings to an end the page on the UNDP website regarding just transition and some important FAQs. Just transition is, of course, a very important topic in impact investing and one we're going to be looking at, I think, a lot during the course of the readings that I will be uploading to this podcast during this year. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. And as we are brand new, please do consider dropping your colleagues a line and saying, hey, check out this new podcast. You can listen to it at the gym. Thanks for listening and have a great day.